tight. And then there's one more at the bottom. It's really not that hard to get to. Let me see if I can put this universal gear on here. Make it a little easier for me. I did not have this the first time, so the first time I did this, I had to just kind of, you know, maneuver everything around and make it work. But I think the way I did it the first time is I just kind of ran my, see if I can get a little light over here so everybody can see it. Ran my hands through here, all the way up in here, and then I literally took a ratchet and just made it work. So you can clearly, clearly you can do that. It's not really the best way. You can just get that started. Alright, it's started. Good deal. Alright, a couple things that I'm going to show everybody to make it easier. I unhooked whatever vacuum line goes up here. You know where it's at. Moved them all over here. It's right here actually. Gets hooked up there. This is part of the EGR. Take notice I took off the entire intake. The reason I did that is because, let me just go grab it so I can show you. The intake was in need of these new gaskets. The reason they needed the gaskets was, if you look, it's got new injectors there, and also cleaned the intake ducts. So it's got them at the top, at the bottom. This will go back on there, tighten down, then the upper intake will go on top of that. Everything just kind of gets back together. If you're not good with remembering where things go, you might want to label them. I really didn't have to do that on this. The only thing that was a little bit of a pain was this bracket, which goes way down there. Oh, it's actually a pretty good spot to show. Kind of a pain to get down there, but it's not impossible. Just took a wrench. I think it was a, I don't know, 15 millimeter. But yeah, I think for the most part, all that I really need to do is tighten these down. I'm going to use a inch-pound torque meter. I think it registers like 90 inch-pounds. I'll crank it close to the limit. Like I said, 7 foot-pounds. I went 8. The 10% overrule on this crap, it'd be like 7.7, but I don't think it's a big deal. I'll just get a few quick shots so everybody can see on the intake. I cleaned that earlier whenever I had this apart before, got all that carbon buildup out of there. One thing that you can do that is you can put a paper towel in the intake, press it in there all the way to the valve, take a shop vacuum, and take a very thin metal brush, either brass or stainless steel. You can clean in there really good and use the vacuum to be sucking the stuff out. Suck it out as much as you can. And there's nozzle attachments. When I say shop vac, I don't mean like the 2-inch vacuum that fitment that comes out of it. I'm talking about the attachments. So you're going to want to, they go all the way down to like 1/2-inch openings, and you want to vacuum it out really well, and then pull the paper towel out, and it pulls whatever you didn't get out with it. If a few little flakes fall into the intake, it's not the end of the world. But when you have all this stuff apart, that upper intake, lower intake, it's a very good idea to clean that stuff so you can get better MPGs and horsepower. Yeah, there was probably at least 1/8 of an inch of carbon carbon buildup in there. And even on this, I'm going to have to go through here and clean all of that off. Can't really see it. That stuff right there. Just some of that grime. Got to clean that off with a wire brush. I showed everybody the one on the valve cover. That's the biggest part. If you don't want it to leak, it's not necessarily the brand of gasket you get, but it's cleaning that off. At the factory, they didn't put a bunch of sealant on this. It was evenly tightened down at the right torque specifications, and it was clean. So if it's clean, and it doesn't take much. I mean, I have just a, this isn't the one I used, but this is just a cheap, you know, you can get a 3-pack of these at hardware store. A couple dollars. It's a pretty big deal to get all that cleaned off, because you know it will definitely leak again. So I'm going to go ahead and get this tightened up and clean up a few things, and you know, this is also a good opportunity to clean things, because when you clean some of this stuff, if you have leaks or issues, it's easier to tell. If you have grime and stuff, even like right here, I'll clean all of this off, this grime, before I put it back together. I already kind of cleaned